Hey Curly, so today I'm here to talk a little bit about exclusively pumping. So when you have a baby, like almost immediately they ask you, do you want to breastfeed or do you want to nurse? But what they don't talk about is a third option. I mean, breastfeed or nurse, those are literally the same options. Like sometimes I just have such a scattered mind. I can't even with myself. No. So when you have a baby, they almost immediately ask you if you want to breastfeed or formula feed, but they don't really talk about the third option that is available. So it's a lot of debates about breast is best, fed is best. Whatever floats your boat is there for you to choose. I really think that honestly, fed is best. And as long as your baby is healthy and thriving, you find if you choose to go with formula, you find a formula that works best for your baby. If you choose the breastfeed, make sure that you are emotionally okay because breastfeeding is hard AF, and make sure that it's not too taxing for you because like milk supply is a real taxing situation. Okay, it will have you stressed and pressed every time. But whatever you choose to do, make sure you like whatever option you choose and makes you happy. But for me, neither one of those options is really ideal. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I chose to go with, which was exclusively pumping. You don't hear as much about it, and a lot of people are like, what? And so basically what exclusively pumping is exactly what it sounds like. It is when you exclusively pump breast milk. So you get yourself a breast pump, and then instead of breastfeeding from your breast, you breastfeed from a bottle. And it really, to me, is like a happy medium between both formula feeding and breastfeeding, because I feel like one of the things when I was first embarking on like baby research or whatever, I wanted to find a way for myself to have some sanity as well as for my baby to get the best possible nutrition. And so I do feel like, so prior to having a baby, this is my first child, my nephew, he had a severe allergy to his formula. He was so sick for months. He would just scream and cry and cry and cry. And it was because they didn't know it, but he was allergic to his formula and he needed like some special sensitive formula. I was like in high school when this all went down, so I don't know all the details quite clearly anymore, but I remember it was like really messed up. And so I was really leery about formula feeding. However, I did want, number one, my husband to be able to feed our baby. I thought that was important. Number two, I did not want to. So I know, there is nothing wrong with like actually breastfeeding in public, but I knew that was not the path for me. I knew I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that. So I didn't want to be, breastfeeding in public. I also was thinking about when my kid gets teeth. I definitely don't want him breastfeeding because, like, what is he gonna do? Like, bite my nipple off? Obviously, some of these things are like things that after you have your kids, you probably won't care about. Like the whole breastfeeding in public, I really don't think you would care. You just be like, I want to leave this house, and this baby is coming, and when he eats, he eats. But the point is, it was a lot of pros and cons to both situations. But I wanted to give breastfeeding a try because everything I read, it did imply that overall breastfeeding is really good for your baby. There are some studies that show that breast milk does help with brain development, with your baby's development. It helps them, develop much better, and you have less chances of your baby being sick. So I exclusively pump. Long story short, I just got to the point again. I keep getting off the point, but I'm back at it. And so exclusively pumping is really intense. So when you first have your kid, depending on you, your milk doesn't come in immediately. It took 3 days for my milk to fully come in. So for the first 3 days, I was breastfeeding. My baby had jaundice, so we did have to supplement with formula. And that was the second big thing that made us not use formula. When we had to supplement with that formula for my baby to not be crying, because he wasn't getting enough breast milk. They wanted to make sure he was getting enough fluids, and because I was breastfeeding and not pumping at the time, because nothing was coming out when I was pumping. Like, you first have colostrum, and colostrum is very thick, and some people do get it to successfully pump, but I could not. And so they wanted to make sure he was getting enough fluids to help him push out that jaundice, the beryllium through his poop. And so we were supplementing from, and he was miserable. He was screaming and crying. He hated it. And so once my milk came in, we totally stopped formula. We switched over to pumping, and it's really hard. I'm not going to lie to you. Exclusively pumping is hard. I think it's probably easier than breastfeeding. Some people will have a totally different perspective, but that's because honestly, they probably do one over the other. But I definitely think that in the beginning it was really difficult. So at first you're trying to build your supply, and so you have to make sure you're pumping enough. Well, you also have a baby to tend to, so you're pumping and tending to your baby. But thankfully, your baby sleeps a lot when you first have them, so it does make it easier to establish supply. And I think that there are a lot of misconceptions about pumping. So there's these misconceptions that like you have to pump in the middle of the night, you have to keep up so many pumps per day to make it work. Well, initially, when I was first working on my supply, I was pumping like I think every 3 to 4 hours just to get my supply up and to make sure we had enough milk for his demand. Well, then I got sick of waking up every 3 to 4 hours every night. And so eventually I missed some pumps. I slept through it. And so, quite frankly, that was the best thing that ever happened. So you don't have to have so many pumps per day. So what you need to do is initially you need to definitely establish your supply. But in my opinion, after your supply is pretty like starting to kind of get established, you don't have to pump as many times a day, but what you need to do is probably pump longer. So what I started doing after I slept through it is I would pump a little bit longer each time I pumped. So pumping a little bit longer produced more milk in one sitting. So therefore, I didn't have to pump as frequently because I was pumping a little bit longer. And so some people are like, well, I don't have the time to pump longer. And that's fair. Do whatever works for you, because that is totally how motherhood, whether it's breastfeeding, formula feeding, pumping, that's how it works. You do what works for you and don't let anybody shame you or convince you otherwise. But you don't have to do what everybody said, is my point. So I switched over to 3 pumps per day pretty early on. I did it probably within the first month because I was just waking up in the middle of the night to pump wasn't working out. And like I was constantly leaking because I was sleeping through my pumps. Like it was just a hot mess. And so another thing that a lot of people talk about when breastfeeding is, is about like all these supplements and stuff you can do. So like there's all these roots, dandelion root, these mother's teas, mother's milk. Like you don't need any of that crap. Like all of that stuff is a nice little gimmick to get your money, and some of it tastes disgusting. I tried brewer's yeast like an idiot, and I almost threw the F up. The stuff people were talking about, it tastes so good. No, it was a lie. Don't believe the reviews. It was a lie. It's disgusting. Don't do it. And so, what you need to do is drink a ton of water. So, like, I know that I drink more water when I drink bottled water, so I got bottled water. Now, if initially, you're trying to drink water, it's not working out, then I do say drink either, you can, instead of brewer's yeast or whatever, I would suggest Body Armor. Body Armor, it works really good at increasing my supply really fast because it's like super hydrating, or Gatorade. But you still need to drink a lot of water, but in combination with that, just until you get more used to drinking more water, that really helps increase your supply really, really fast. I don't think it's a long-term fix because overall, all these things have sugar in them and they're going to make you fat. Like, I know that's not on your mind right now, but one day you're going to think about that because I was chugging a lot of Body Armor and my cheeks were getting real puffy. But they were already puffy from having a baby, but they were staying real puffy and getting puffier. And so I stopped doing that. I started drinking water. For me, in order to drink more water, initially I was doing like a refillable water bottle. And this is a personal thing, but for me that doesn't work out as well. I do much better when I have just regular 16.9 ounce bottles of water. I can drink those and I can pace myself and clock that much better. But if you're having a hard time drinking water, this is what I would suggest. Drink enough water. Drink 2 cups right before you pump. I always drink water right before I pump because I feel like it makes my milk flow faster. And then I get a little bit better output. But drink 2 cups right before you pump and drink 2 cups right after. And then if you can drink more water in between your pump, then that's good. But that right there is a pretty solid foundation because that is giving you 4 cups each pump. So that is, if you pump it 3 times a day, that's 12 cups. You need to drink more water than that, but that is a good start. And then if you can't drink more water than that because it just is not working out for you, throw in like a Gatorade, Body Armor, whatever, in between pumps. So that's something else to think about. And then also with exclusively pumping, you do wash a lot of stuff. I'm not going to lie to you. That's probably the most irritating thing, is washing out a lot of stuff. But if you are formula feeding, you will also be washing out a lot of stuff. You wouldn't have to wash out your pump parts, but honestly, for me, it's almost no different washing out pump parts versus bottle parts. It all sucks. That's one thing breastfeeding has over everything. But I definitely feel like overall, I personally stand behind exclusively pumping, and I suggest exclusively pumping if you're considering breastfeeding, but you just feel like overall it's too daunting. It's not something you want. You don't want to be tied to like you don't want to be tied. You don't want your kid tied to your boob, or like feel like you can't do anything. Because a breast pump is definitely something that also, if you go somewhere, it's super mobile, and then you can freeze that extra breast milk. So like if I were to go out of town, we have frozen milk, and I could take my breast pump with me. If I wasn't going with my baby, I take my breast pump with me to pump that milk and then store it to bring it home. But like, I feel like you have a lot more freedom when you are exclusively pumping, or even if you did a mix of breastfeeding and pumping, just to get a break. Because latching is hard. When I was in the hospital, that was like one of the hardest things, was trying to get the baby to latch. Getting the baby to latch is hard. Having somebody constantly sucking on your nipple is hard. Having to be tied to your baby every 2 to 3 hours, like at first when they're eating every 2 to 3 hours, is hard. Sometimes you want somebody else to feed them so you can go off and take a shower, take a nap, or whatever. So I think that pumping is definitely a happy medium to me, and it was for me. It was a great choice. So my particular pump that I'm using is the Medela Pump. It's the Medela Pumping style in the backpack, and so basically it's a pump that's in a little backpack. I actually have it over here, so I guess I can bring it over. Knocking stuff down. So this is how it looks. So oh, I've got a t-shirt on it. This is how it looks. So it's in a backpack. So up here in the big part is like a cooler, if you were to go to work, and then it fits like the 4 little tiny Medela pump valves. This is the part of the actual pump itself. This is where you turn it on. It's not plugged in right now. And then these are like the little attachments. This is like what actually causes the suction. You attach this to your pump, and then it does the suction for you. And so it's actually really mobile. So, and it's also something to think about. Another reason I chose to exclusively pump from the beginning is because, prior to like this whole pandemic situation, I was returning to work, and I was like, I'm gonna need something. Like, I'm gonna need my baby used to drinking out of a bottle, and I need to be used to pumping because I'm not gonna be there for him to eat. So I need to have that figured out. And I'm like a planner, so I needed to do that in advance because I was like really worried that my baby wouldn't take a bottle if he was to exclusively breastfeed. And you can definitely work on those things with your baby if you exclusively breastfeed and return to work. But now I'm at home, so it really doesn't matter. But I still do like exclusively pumping way better because I can send my husband off and get some peace. Also, when I pump, like especially if you have a partner at home, when I pump and my husband is not at work and he's at home, like, that is me time. I spend that time maybe watching a video, reading a book, whatever. I spend maybe 20 to 30 minutes pumping each time I pump, which does seem like a daunting amount of time, but sometimes it's only, it depends on how hydrated I am, because if I'm really hydrated, I can get it done in 15 minutes. And the more hydrated you are, the faster the milk flows. But yeah, so overall, I'm not sure if I hit all my points, but I've been talking for a really long time. My throat's a little dry. So I feel like that's a sign I need to wrap it up. So overall, I definitely think that exclusively pumping is an option that if you hadn't considered before, you should consider. If you are kind of on the fence about you want to breastfeed, but you don't want to be tied down to all of the breastfeeding, like the things associated with breastfeeding, like being tied down to, being the only one able to feed your baby, or you just feel like you're not sure how you would feel as far as breastfeeding in public, or anything like that. If any of those thoughts are thoughts that are crossing your mind, then I definitely think you should look into exclusively pumping, do your own research, and make an informed decision for yourself. If you do have any questions, drop them down in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer it, to the best of my knowledge of what works for me and based on the research I've done. And then, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up. I hope that you really liked it. I hope you subscribe to my channel. And I hope that you have a wonderful day. And if you're watching this video, it's a good chance that you either are pregnant and having a baby or have already had a baby. So congratulations. Motherhood is definitely a change of pace. I think that's a way big understatement. But it's a change of pace. It's definitely awesome and amazing. So congratulations to you. And I hope that you love it, I guess. No, you're gonna love it because babies are definitely a challenge, but they're awesome. Like, my little dude is so awesome, and I don't know what, like, I can't even, I just had my baby like 7 months ago, but I can't even imagine what my life would be without him, because that's like how he's like, they become like your whole world in like a split second. So yeah, congratulations was what I was trying to say, and then I guess goodbye.